Since the early days of slavery, when African people were stolen from their lands and brought to the Americas, a system of inequality concerning relationships to power and access to resources has pervaded the lives of Black people. One of the crucial ways this power imbalance has been maintained is through access to housing. The white population has attributed negative connotations to Black neighborhoods, isolating them in overpopulated all-Black areas known as slum neighborhoods. This white mindset led to the formation of a Black Belt in Chicago in the 1900s and still affects the housing of Black Americans today in areas such as South Central.
These colored neighborhoods began to form after the Great Migration, when urban America saw a substantial increase in its Black populations in a rural to urban shift. The sudden influx of Black people caused a mass exodus of white people who were living in the city. White flight, this racially driven migration, led to the creation of the vanilla suburbs.
As a consequence, most of the mortgages went to suburbanizing America, and it suburbanized it racially.
White flight has been a tool utilized in not only demarcating, but propagating the physical, social, and financial inequalities between Blacks and whites. As summarized in Chocolate Cities, the areas in which these minority groups are concentrated become stigmatized, and there's a tendency to blame the group for the condition of the area. Integrated neighborhoods were viewed as unstable, both economically and socially, fortifying the barriers that separated Blacks and whites.
To preserve these middle-class white neighborhoods in Chicago, by 1930, 75% of residential property began to be bound by restrictive covenants, practices that forbid renting or selling property to Blacks. By the end of World War II, the FHA had heightened this enforced segregation. The government institutionalized a national appraisal system, which deemed race as another factor in property assessment.
So that those communities that were all white, suburban, and far away from minority areas, they received the highest rating, and that was the color green. Those communities that were all minority or in the process of changing, they got the lowest rating, and the color red. They were redlined.
During the 1900s, housing infrastructures on the verge of collapsing were given to Black migrants for residency. Tenement collapse was common, and reconstruction that was to take place was never seen, causing housing shortages and displacement. Buildings rented to Black communities were often missing necessities like restrooms, yielding extremely unsanitary homemade outhousings. Regardless of housing improvements, present-day living conditions in South Central continue to resemble the past. Mold, roaches, and other housing hazards plague housing infrastructures, causing a potential danger to families. Poor areas of the city see more illegal dumping and litter than affluent ones. Some of the streets are classified as so dirty that they may require immediate cleanup.
Poor living conditions can serve as a mechanism of social stratification, affecting children's well-being and resulting in the intergenerational transmission of social inequality. South Central is a prime example of deprived and destitute living, beginning with its overpopulation, tied with its lack of resources, immense quantity of homeless, and gentrification by industries and large corporations. Overcrowding in Los Angeles' Black Belts caused the housing crisis to become the #1 issue facing Los Angeles' Black community. South Central has approximately 3 times the amount of people who usually live in a crowded complex rather than a spacey home, like the ones in Westwood.
To migrate is a form of resistance and liberation. Therefore, maps serve as a template for Black agency and self-determination. However, the Los Angeles map of 1939, created by the Homeowners Loan Corporation, or HOLC, does not share that same narrative. Through color coordination, this map alludes to the idea that a high concentration of Black and brown people in turn produces low-grade communities. In other words, the Blacker the village, the lower grade of residents. Redlining isn't merely a historical issue. From South Central Los Angeles to our Westwood community, the implication of redlining persist and permeate through the daily lives of Black and brown communities. In this way, we are not yet free.